but it took a very long time, and I was starting to feel pain again. It was around 11:30 that I was starting to feel uncomfortable and painful again, especially in my back. My back was where I was feeling the pain. I knew when I was having contractions then, because before, at the beginning, I didn't know when I was having them. This time I knew, because my back was extremely painful. It was in a very large amount of pain for the fact that I had an epidural. Then, okay, so it's like 11:30. They check me, they say I'm at 9, almost there. They started kind of getting ready. They were preparing the room a little bit more, and then I got to 10, and it was about 11:45. I was at 10, and they were like, okay, let's start some practice pushing. And so I was like practicing, and then we did some pushing, like real pushing, and the doctor still wasn't there. It was just the nurse and my husband, and she was telling me when to push, and I was feeling pain. Not so much pressure down there. I couldn't feel anything in my lady bits at all. I was numb in my lady bits. It was hard for me to push. I found out I was pushing the wrong way, which led to severe hemorrhoids. But I was pushing like you have to poop, not like you are having a baby. She kept like stretching me as I was going, which my mom was commenting later on, like, I don't know why she was doing that. It looked so awful. And I was like, because it made me know where to push. I was like, it actually really helped because I could focus on that feeling of slight pressure and know that's where I'm pushing, because I couldn't feel anything. It was, my lady bits were unknown to me. But I could feel everything in my back, and it was just like insane. So then we got like, the doctor came in, and you know, I'm pushing and 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 pushing, and nothing's really happening. So 12 o'clock came, and so then it's no longer December 3rd, which I was hoping for a December 3rd birthday, not December 3rd, so now we're in December 4th. And I'm pushing and pushing and pushing. Finally, his head's in position. It's locked in my pelvis. They take out the bed comes apart, and everybody's getting ready. They're really preparing. They got everything going. And as I'm pushing, nothing's happening still. I was in so much pain. My pelvis and my back hurt immensely, horribly. So they came back in with more epidural stuff, and they kind of like injected it into the tube. And after that happened, it actually really helped. I think the pain had like made me clench or something. I don't really know. As soon as that happened, it helped me push. And I was able to push out, finally, my little boy, who was 8 pounds, 5 ounces. I don't remember exactly how long. That sounds really bad. He was in the 20s. He was born at 12:36. It was crazy. He had a big head, which we found out is why it was so painful for me, because I am a smaller framed person. I've always struggled with weight, but as far as my frame and my pelvis, it's very small. His head was very large. I don't remember the circumference offhand. I do know that it was in like the percentile way up. He's been in the 90s and above percentile for head his whole life. His head is just very large. And he was an 8'5" baby, which isn't the hugest, but it was definitely too big for me. So looking back, I know why it was so hard to push. I know why I had so much pain. It's because he was huge. comparative to me, which when I was pregnant, I heard one doctor, he came to me and he was like, wow, big baby, little body. And that's exactly what happened. It was a big baby and a little body. He was late, so he had longer to grow and cook, and he was just overall large, which, him being stuck in my canal for so long, bruised his head, and that bruising led to jaundice, and he had a lot of liquid in his chest and his body. So almost right away they took him away and they were squeegeeing his mouth out and trying to get all of the liquid out of him because he had so much built up because of the all the time he spent in there. And his head was bruised, and he got a really bad case of jaundice. I think there was 4 levels, and he was on the 3rd level. It was a very bad case. We ended up spending 4 days at the hospital with him. Thankfully, they didn't make me leave. They let me spend the days there in my little recovery room with him in his little tanny bed is what I called it. It was like it's like the little baby carriage, and there's a light that goes over it, and it has a heater too. Okay, so they had him in his little tanning bed, and they had him wear these little things over his eyes, it was a Velcro thing, and it was a tanning bed. So yeah, that was kind of scary, and with all my emotions going haywire, I felt like it was my fault. It made me I had not depression, but, the baby blues, and I was it felt like it was because of me, because I could not get him out fast enough. He bruised his head, and he had this jaundice thing. He came out very strong. I remember that, when they had to, take the blood from his heel, they prick it, and then they, push the blood out. He was kicking, so, he was pushing and kicking, that they were, we had 2 nurses along with me and Eric kind of trying to hold him down, because he was just so strong, which I knew from the beginning, because he kicked so much in my belly that it was painful kicks. From, 20 weeks on, it was painful kicks. So I knew he was going to come out strong, and he did, and he came out as a strong little man. And one thing that made me very upset with not only hospital, but just our overall experience with the nurses and everything, was his jaundice. They want you to get as much liquid into them as possible, because the way it escapes is through their system. It has to be filtered through the kidneys, and then it comes out as pee and poo and stuff. So we were given, the little hospital bottles of formula, which are pre-mixed. You just open it, and then you put the little nipple on, and then you give it to them. Well, let's start off with first, and before we moved to our actual room, we were in the birth room still. They were like, do you want a nurse? And I was like, of course. I wanted to exclusively breastfeed. I wanted to breastfeed him, and I wanted to do this. So they were like, just let him go as long as he wants. Okay. Well, I nursed him, and he just wanted to keep going on the one side. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't take a breastfeeding class. I didn't look up a lot on it of how to do it. I thought it would just come to me, and even though I've read and heard about people having problems with breastfeeding, it just didn't click that I might have problems too. So he ended up nursing on one side for 45 minutes for my very first nursing session right after birth, which maybe some people that's okay with, but with my boob, it was not. She came back in, and she was like, oh, you're still on the same side? And I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing. And so we switched sides, and he could, if he wanted to, he would nurse the whole time. He wouldn't fall asleep. He was just laying there, suck, 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 suck. And think the mailman's here. Oh, he's skipping my house. Sorry. So, he just wanted to suck and suck and suck and suck and suck and suck and suck. And for a new mom with new nipples, not new nipples, but you know what I mean, it turned out not being so great. I ended up getting a blister, a breastfeeding blister on my boobs and on my nipples, and it really hurt, especially on one side was way worse than the other, which was the first one that I ever breastfed on, was that side, the one that I was 45 minutes on. And no one came to talk to me. I didn't know what was going on. So then they gave me these bottles. They say, okay, he needs to drink this entire thing. Well, the baby's stomach is the size of a, like, marble. Like, this little itty bitty thing. These bottles were, like, you know, this big. I didn't know any better. I just followed what the nurses said. And we're trying to get this bottle into him and, you know, trying to get him to drink as much as possible. And then nursing on top of that. Well, but that didn't work out. He was getting very gassy, very irritated. He was getting spit up everywhere. He was just not a happy baby. And I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what to do. I was so upset from thinking it was all my fault and that I couldn't breastfeed and that everything was just horrible. So I'm in the hospital crying my eyes out in my recovery room. My dog's having a dream. Yeah, so I'm just bawling my eyes out. And then finally a lactation consultant comes and she's like, well, what's wrong? And I was like, well, and I told her everything that happened. And she was like, okay, first of all, whoever told you to drink that, hey, he has to drink that whole bottle is insane. Only like this much. And I was like, are you kidding me? I was so upset because we had been force feeding this amount into our child that was just not needed. And then she was like, and no more than 15 minutes on each breast, especially that you have blisters. She gave me these little cooling pads that I kept in the fridge. They were like little gel packs. And I only used one because the blister on the one side pretty much went away, and the blister on the other side was still there. And so I would use one and keep the other one in the fridge and then flip-flop it. And so I was constantly having this on my nipple, which really helped. So she was pretty much like a godsend, and she brought in a pump and she showed me how to pump and, you know, all this stuff. And, you know, I still felt like, I mean, I'm crying right now and think about it. I still felt like it was like my fault, and, you know, I should have known better to not try to feed him that much, to have pushed better, to have known how to breastfeed, to all this stuff, and it's making me upset. And this was all in the span of 4 days. I think she came on like the second day, the fourth day we left. So she came in on like the second or third day. So yeah, that really sucked and was no fun, and might have resulted in the fact that I had low milk supply for a good amount of time because he was on this formula too while he was in the hospital. Finally, when we got out, we completely stopped formula as much as we could, and he was exclusively on the boob, and things got a lot better. And yeah, so that was his labor, delivery, and slight aftermath story. This is probably really long. I'll probably have to break it up into a few parts. And yeah, thank you guys for watching, if anyone did. And I will see you guys sometime soon. Bye.